Perik Dalet Halacha Ches. We're learning Taruvus Chometz, even all of Mishum Bayuro Bayimotze. The mixture of Chometz, Yoiva and Bayuro Bayimotze. And we'll go down and learn that from Halacha Ches and further, we're talking about Taruvus Chometz, mixtures, whether they're capable of being eaten or not, as they are. Taruvus Chometz. This is something that has a mixture of Chometz with other things. So you transgress on Bayuro Bayimotze. What kind of mixture? These are the three different types of foods. You make it from flour. Says the Loshen Haramim exactly. In other words, it's a food item which is made with flour and it becomes chometz inside. Mishnah Berurah cites the person explained marias is a type of food that's made from the fat of fish with flour, which is a bit not baked, roasted, and with a bit of water. Koiseach is made from melach and mei cholov, and you have puree pas in it, piece of bread in it. The Bat Nura explains the Mishnah in Psochim Per Gimel that Koiseach Abavli is made from bread that has become moldy and it's rotten, falling apart, and you put it together with milk and you dip in it. It's a dip that you make out of it. The Rambam Pirush Mishnayos explains Shekriseach is dovo that has in it flour again. Shecha Amodai is explained by the Mishnah Berurah in the name of the Poskim that they put into it barley and water in order to cause it to become fermented. This is Taruvus Chometz. Pirush Mishnayos explains Shecha, something which causes a person, it's alcoholic, and you make it from many different things, from wheat that are soaked in water, and barley that's for the taste. And it was a drink of the people of Modai. It was made from soaking bread. Just like they do in Mitzrayim, they call it El Mazel. As we see that Shecha Modai is made from wheat or barley that became fermented and not from flour. It must be that he writes the words here of kemach because the Rambam says it was made from actual bread. Doesn't mean shecha modai. Only the other items, shecha mavli ulemorais, that there is wheat in them. All of anything that's like these from things that are eaten. Any type of eating of chometz, a mixture of chometz from things that can be eaten, you're over, you transgress by your motza. But something it has a mixture and you can't eat it. You can keep it. For example, cleaning fluids that have in it wheat, because you don't transgress on something that's not edible. The Magen Mishnah cites these are taken away on Pesach. We have to get rid of them because Rashi explains that you transgress by your yimotze. The Rambam adds merayis, and so the Goinim say as well. You go to the next page in the Pirush. The Magen Mishnah cites, according to the Rambam in Perek Aleph, somebody who eats Taruvus Chometz is not oiv mederaisa on the law of Achilas Chometz. He doesn't get malchus only when he eats a Kezayas Chometz in the period of time. In other words, if he would eat that item within a period of time of a third or a half of a bread, and according to the Rambam, that is 3 eggs. If he'll eat it from this mixture, 3 eggs of chometz during that interval, and in it there will be a kezayis of chometz. Therefore, you transgress. The Magen Mishnah says, that according to the Rambam, even if he's not over by yomotze in the mixture, because it doesn't have a kezayis v'ktei achilas pras. And so it would seem from what he says, ki goin kisecha bavli v'shecha amodai, and he mentioned them in Perik Aleph, only if they have a kezayis, are you chayiv on them? The Maggid Mishnah says that we see that even in a mixture of chometz, there is not a kezayis if you would eat it within, you would eat what's there. In this period of time that it takes to eat 3 eggs, you would not eat a kezayis. You still have to get rid of it. And there are those who explain that's the thoughts of the Rambam. Even though for achila, when you eat it, you're not over. And by your motzi, you're over if it has a kezayis, even if it doesn't have a kezayis within the period of time that you can eat. But it has within it a kezayis. What's the difference with the chometz is mixed in other macholim, the am chometz, and that's how the Ramach also explains it. But the Maggid Mishnah isn't sure whether if it's you can't eat a kezayis, whether that kezayis is considered a kezayis. What causes these parts to be considered a kezayis? There has to be a measurement of a certain measure to cause it to become a valid item. Now, here's the Ramach questions: why should be over on achilas chometz? Where it says you're only over when you eat, that you're not over unless you eat a kezayis gedei achilas pras. Even though taruvus chometz is not from a different pasuk. Kol machmetz is lo yisechelu, to tell you shouldn't eat things that have a mixture. And from that we add only those that have a kezayis gedei achilas pras. However, with keeping chometz, it doesn't say kol. Therefore, it comes to you that it's also, and you're oiver b'lav. According to the Ramach, he wants to say, according to the Rambam, al yirov yemotzi, it'll be oiver even when there's no kezayis in gedei achilas pras, because it doesn't say regarding by yirov yemotzi kol. By machmetz it says kol machmetz lo yisachelu. By it says lo yirov lecho yemotzi anything. Now the Ramach says, what Rambam says, that you do not transgress on kriseach, that he eats from it a kezayis more than gedei achilas pras. He's talking about that the actual mixture has a kezayis in gedei achilas pras. That he would find a kezayis within it, like in the Gemara, that b'zeisum hamitzri, 1/3 of it is so'er. Just that the Rambam is of the opinion that by eating, he has to eat from the taruvus chometz a kezayis of chometz within the gedei achilas pras. That even though you have a kezayis, still he has to actually eat it. If you can't eat that much of this item, because you'll be eating, let's say, so much that it's not edible, it's very sharp, and it's made to be a dip. You don't eat it as such. If he ate it, even though it has a kezayis, this is not called eating, because no normal person would do it, and therefore his mind instead is wrong. It's not a way to eat according to the majority of the people. And since the Rambam is the opinion, la halacha k'rabbanan, that you don't say kol, you're not oyer b'taruvos unless in a kezayis chametz with a lav. Only when he eats a kezayis chometz with a pras in a normal way. Therefore, he writes over here that you transgress on its eating, but if it has only if you have a chometz in a shear of kezayis chometz, which you can eat in a regular way of eating kriseach, that you dip into it, and while you're dipping, you'll end up with a kezayis. Therefore, the Rambam is of the opinion that you'll be oivan by your when there's a taruvus kezayis in gedei achilas pras, because that's according to the Rambam, since it's there and it's possible technically to eat it, therefore even though you wouldn't eat it normally, so you are liable for having it in your rishus. And so it would seem in the Gemara since at the beginning of the Mishnah of Tarubas Chometz, Rashi explains, it doesn't ask a question that who is this Tana who says Yoiva. It just says a question on Achilos Musoron Beloi. And the Gemara doesn't ask who's the Tana that says Yoiva Belav, only in the Sefer. Because it was the Gemara questions if you eat it the way it is, not through dipping, then it's the only time we say it's not normal. But if you could technically eat it, you would be over. Because the Mishnah explains, on Achilas Chometz, you only get Malchus when there's a Kezayas within the time frame of eating Achilas Pras, 3 eggs. But by Yerah by Yemotza, you transgress even in Taruvis that has less than a Kezayas in the Achilas Pras, when in the entire mixture there's a Kezayas found there, because by Achilas Taruvis there's less than the Kezayas, but Achilas Pras, it's like he's eating a half a shear. Just like anybody else who eats half the amount in the proper time. However, by Yerah by Yemotza, since there is a Kezayas Chometz, he's over. What's the difference if the Kezayas is in Taruvis, maybe the Achilas Pras, or in a larger amount? Now, I'm assuming at the moment we're not talking about Shishim where it's bottled. What the Maggid Mishnah cites in Perek Aleph, the Kesech Abav L'Shech Modai, you're only over when there is a Kezayas within the time period of Pras. Because the Mishnah says that the Maggid Mishnah himself in Perek Aleph refutes the Ravid's questions. You can't be chayiv, you can't be liable on Kesech, don't have a Kezayas within the time frame of Achilas Pras. He explains that even though when eating it, it doesn't have a Kezayas, still, if you ate it, Shaloi Kederech, according to the Maggid Mishnah, you would get Malchus. And that's would seem to be in contradiction to what he's saying over here. And even though the Rambam Berg Aleph would seem to be saying, with his Kezayas, with the Achilas Pras, and he writes that you get Malchus on Pesach, that's only so when he ate a Kezayas Chometz within the Taruvis, within the time frame. That's not a proof of anything, because you can say that usual Kesech does not have an Kezayas within Kedei Achilas Pras. And he only writes it since he has to make a differentiation between mixtures that have a Kezayas and those that don't have that you get Malchus, and those that you don't. Therefore, first he mentions to you those things which have a Kezayas within Achilas Pras, and only afterwards does he tell you that if it doesn't have a Kezayas, you don't get Malchus, because that's the way people speak, to mention first that which is applicable, and then to tell you the exclusions. But here he's telling you Kesech, and he doesn't tell you what it is. And his intent is for Kesech that does not have a Kezayas v'Kedei Achilas Pras, that even though it doesn't have it, you would transgress on Yerah Yemotza. And the Mishnah says, since in Perek Aleph the Rambam makes a difference between whether it does or it doesn't have, and by Yerah he doesn't make this differentiation. We see that as far as keeping this Chometz in his Rishus, you oivan by Yerah by Yemotza, even when the Achilas Kezayas doesn't have a Kedei Achilas Pras.